The story begins with a young boy named Eric Ponte, sitting at the dinner table with his mother and stepfather who tells him to hold the fork correctly. Eric accidentally drops the knife and receives a slap from his stepfather, who gives Eric a proper beating after the dinner over something so small, while his mother, too afraid to confront, plays piano to drown out the noise of lashings. This results in Eric taking out his frustration on other boys in school. Eric is called in by the headmaster for his violent behavior and labeled as pure evil. He is expelled from the school, and his mother sells a few of her belongings and family heirlooms to send Eric to a boarding school. Eric's mother makes him promise that he won't mess up things there and tells him that she understands his behavior because of the situation at home. She gives him money to get a haircut, and, after that, he gets on the train to his new school. Upon arrival, Eric is guided and shown around by a senior named Otto Silverhelm, who seems very kind as he takes him to his room, and, later, to the swimming pool when Eric tells him he likes swimming. Eric goes back to his room to find Pierre, his roommate, and they both become friends. They talk about movies while heading to the mess, and Pierre explains that every table has a monitor and a vice monitor, and Eric's table has Silverhelm and Dahlen as supervisors. During dinner, one of the boys at the table asks about Eric's father to fit him into a social class, depending on his monetary position, and Eric curses while refusing to tell. The seemingly polite Silverhelm scolds them for using such language, and Dahlen smacks the head of the student questioning Eric with a butter knife. However, the teachers don't react at all. It is revealed that a group of 12 sixth formers make a student council, controlling disobedient students through physical punishment. Eric wonders what would have happened if the student refused to get punished, and Pierre tells him he would have to stand in the corner, and if that is refused he would have gotten weekend detention. The next day, during history class, the teacher explains the superiority of some nations over others by comparing students. He makes Eric stand in front of the class, praises his physique and features, and calls him a typical Germanic type. He next calls Pierre to the front and humiliates him for being a frail person, before calling him a Southern type. During lunch, Eric curses out while discussing the incident in history class with a classmate named Johann, and Dahlen calls him to the front for a hit. But Eric refuses that and even denies standing in the corner, which gets him a weekend detention. So, Silverhelm, to reclaim his authority, calls for Johann and hits him. Eric gets settled in the new place, making friends and even managing a spot on the swimming team after breaking their local record. Pierre doesn't seem happy with the success, as he tells Eric the less he is noticed by the seniors, the better it is. Suddenly, Eric is called by Dahlen to the Olympian House of Seniors, where Dahlen tells him to polish his shoes. Eric agrees, but Dahlen gives him 5 more sets fully covered with dirt, so Eric refuses, and Pierre tells him he shouldn't have refused them. Eric asks what happens if he hits a senior, and Pierre tells him it will result in immediate expulsion. Eric wonders if there is a way to stand his ground non-violently, and Pierre wishes he could find a way. The next day, Dahlen intentionally bumps into Eric and asks him to apologize. When Eric refuses, they tell him to meet them in the ring later. Pierre explains that, in the ring, the senior students beat up the students to punish them. The task is to take as many hits as possible and then beg for mercy. Near the ring, Silverhelm stands with his feet on the head of a student and tells him to beg for mercy. It angers Eric, and he almost goes to the ring, but knowing it could end badly, he decides not to go. During the night, however, Silverhelm's men come into the room under the guise of a room inspection, but thrash the entire room. The next day, during swimming, the coach tells Eric that a competition will be held before Christmas, and the competition is founded by the father of one of the students, who is supposed to win this year's championship again. He tells Eric not to let his talent go to waste, even if his winning will make enemies. One day, during lunch, Silverhelm announces a council meeting in the evening, and 4 guilty students are to attend. Eric, who is now referred to as the Rat by everyone, is called in and tells Silverhelm that he refuses to get humiliated by polishing shoes or apologizing. He gets an additional sentence for talking back and receives a total punishment of 2 weekends with forced labor and 8 weekends in house arrest. The first weekend arrives, and Dahlan orders Eric to dig a ditch, specifically 1 meter long, wide, and deep. When Eric completes the task, he tells him to fill the ditch up before someone falls inside it, and Eric gets to work despite the heavy rain. Once he is done with the day, he heads to the mess, where he meets Marja, a Finnish cafeteria staff member, and she praises him for standing up against the bullies. Once again, everyone leaves for the weekend, and Eric is left alone. He serves his detention while studying in class and goes to the mess when it is empty. He is served food by Marja, who tells him she was thinking of taking an evening stroll near their secret smoking place around 7 o'clock. Eric gets there on time but still doesn't understand why she called him until she holds him close. Pierre tells him cloister night is approaching, and the seniors bully the freshmen harshly. They set up a barricade using books, but it proves of no use as Silverhelm and others open the door and throw a bucket full of sewage into their room. Barely resisting the urge to throw up, they quickly clean the room, and Eric takes the bucket to the Olympian house and pours the entire bucket on a sleeping Silverhelm. The next day, he says they have no proof and hence can't accuse him, but during lunch, Eric points out how bad Silverhelm smells, which causes him to get a beating. This causes Marja to shout for them to stop, and this causes the headmaster to finally tell the students to quit fighting. Eric invites Marja to come to his swimming competition and wins first place while setting 3 championship records. During Christmas break, Eric's mother praises his good grades and swimming trophy, but Eric faces another brutal beating from his stepfather, while his mother plays the piano to mask the sounds. When he comes back, he notices something is wrong, as Marja starts avoiding him, and the bullies shift their target to Pierre. They give him 3 weeks detention for no reason and Dahlan pees on his bed. Pierre realizes they've changed their tactic to get to Eric, so Eric quits the swimming team. He tries to visit Marja, but she bluntly tells him that a relationship between them is not possible, so he shouldn't visit her again. As he heads back, he is called for an inspection and goes to Silverhelm's room to find Dahlan bullying a naked Pierre. They are about to stub a burning cigarette on Pierre's chest, but Eric tells them to hurt him instead. Dahlan stubs it on Eric's chest, and Eric doesn't make a single sound despite the unbearable pain. Seriously, how resilient is this boy? They tell Pierre to get dressed and meet them at the ring. The next day, Eric tries to talk Pierre out of it, but Pierre wants to stand his ground, so the friends get into a disagreement. Eric comes to see the fight, and Pierre refuses to comply with their demands despite a severe beating. The next morning, Eric checks on Pierre and goes to his house arrest punishment, but before he can get there, Dahlan orders him to hammer 4 posts into the ground and go to his house arrest. Later, on his way to dinner after the punishment, he gets ambushed, and the seniors tie his limbs to the posts he hammered earlier. They first pour boiling water on him, then pour ice-cold water on him, before leaving him there to freeze to death. Marja finds him there, takes him to her cabin, and the two spend the night together. He rushes back to his room early in the morning, only to find a letter from Pierre saying that he has left the school and hopes Eric won't hold a grudge against him for leaving. The letter makes him emotional, as he misses his only friend. Over the next few days, the biology teacher, who adored Pierre, calls Eric a coward for not being able to defend his friend. Eric, ignoring the fear of being expelled, invites Dahlan and another big guy from Silverhelm's gang to the ring. The seniors rejoice, thinking they'll finally get to teach Eric a lesson, but Eric isn't scared at all and promises to beat them to a pulp. The fight starts, and Eric easily manages to beat both the seniors. Silverhelm looks frightened, but instead of humiliating him, Eric just leaves the ring. He heads to the staff building and finds out that Marja has returned to Finland after being fired 3 days ago for misconduct. Eric becomes very preoccupied with his thoughts and is unable to focus in class. A few days later, all the students receive their letters, and a friend of Silverhelm notices that Eric got a letter from Finland. He tells this to Silverhelm, who, during a room inspection, takes the letter from Eric. In the letter, Marja tells Eric not to worry about her bearing his child and confesses her love for him. Silverhelm takes the letter to the headmaster, who expels Eric the next day. Eric asks for the letter, as he wants to write to her, but the headmaster tells him to forget the girl. He calls his mother but is unable to tell her the situation, so he cuts the call without saying anything. The next day, Eric confronts Silverhelm in the woods and threatens to kill him then and there, promising to burn his clothes and leave no evidence behind. Silverhelm hysterically starts vomiting from anxiety and begs Eric to let him stay alive, promising him as much money as he wants. However, Eric refuses to stoop as low as Silverhelm, so he doesn't harm him and leaves him crying in the woods. As he packs his bags to empty the room, he remembers Mr. Ekengren, a family friend who's a lawyer, and gives him a call. He shows up and tells the headmaster that Eric's privacy has been breached and he knows a reporter who is very interested in publishing the story about the internal affairs of the school. Ekengren addresses the headmaster, pointing out that the school violated Sweden's confidentiality regulations by looking at Marja's letter. Eric is accepted back into the school and even gets Marja's letter back. He then finishes his last semester without incident and gets home with excellent grades that guarantee he will get admission into any college of his choice, but his stepfather is again dissatisfied with Eric's behavior and grades, and he curses Marja. Eric decides that it ends here and tells his mother that she doesn't need someone like him and that he will be leaving them for once and all, as within 30 minutes he will be inside a hospital. He closes the room and deals with his stepfather off-screen. Eric reconciles with Pierre, who's leaving for Geneva to study business, while Eric takes a job as the messenger boy in a law firm to earn tuition fees for law school.